When traveling to New Zealand, most visitors will want to do some of the great walks New Zealand has to offer. And this video will provide you local insider travel tips for walks and hikes, which are so important for any successful New Zealand trip planning. So let's get started and get into the details. My name is Mike. We have 13 national parks in New Zealand, 3 in the North Island and 10 in the South Island. Plus, there are another 54 conservation and forest parks, so there's a lot to choose from. The purpose of this video is to give you an overview on those walks and hikes in New Zealand, how they work, what you need to know, and how to plan those, especially if you have short time in New Zealand, 2, 3, 4 weeks. You want to make those key decisions ahead of arrival. By the way, I got another video on how best to plan your overall New Zealand and have some strategies in place. But in this video, we will go through the main national parks and some of the forest parks. Let's get into details. So in my day job as a travel designer, most of my guests would arrive in Auckland. They usually have 1 or 2 nights. And some of them would go off to the islands, like Waiheke Island for wine tasting. Others would actually go for Rangitoto or Motutapu Island. There are hikes available on those islands as well, but another really cool area is the Waitakere Ranges here on the western side of the city. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of forest parks, and those walks are easily accessible. You can either go travel with your car or join a local tour party and just get the first impression on New Zealand. All these walks are free of charge, so there's no fees to pay. You pay an overall conservation surcharge with your ETA when you arrive in New Zealand, but that's all before you actually touch down. This gives you a first impression on New Zealand if you're keen straight away to go for hikes and walks. So once you start traveling, a very popular region here is the Coromandel Forest Park. Again, what mentioned before, there's a lot of 54 forest and nature parks in New Zealand. So this is one of them. There are, strictly not national park, but they're beautiful as well. So when you look at the map, there are a number of options where you can actually do your hiking and walks, depending very much where you're staying, on the western side or eastern side. Most people would actually want to stay here on the eastern side. You got Hotwater Beach, and you got here High Beach, and like here, it's interesting because that's Cathedral Cove, which is a famous place to go to. I just opened it up. It's currently closed because they had a bit of a slip. So it always pays also to check with your accommodation hosts on availabilities on those hikes, and if they're open or closed. Here's a warning sign at the moment, so be aware of that. It can happen, but otherwise, these are classic little beach walks, an hour or 2, so that they're very easily to incorporate into your overall itinerary. So when traveling further south, there are always some treasures on the way, like Karangahake Gorge, which is a famous kind of walk and cycle trail as well. Often when traveling between locations, that's probably the key difference between Australia and New Zealand. You travel in New Zealand for 50 kilometers and there's so much to see, so many hikes, walks. And again, it's really helpful to talk to your hosts on their recommendations. What's along, look at that. It's a swing bridge for cyclists and obviously walkers as well. Again, those walks are basically, there's no charge on it. You can just start walking. There's often a car park around. Look at that, an old railway tunnel for the cyclists. So there's lots to discover. And it's right on the main road again, the car parking situation. Often you park the car and then you just go for an hour or so. So if you head further south into the North Island, you can already see, there's so many forest parks and so many options for smaller walks, for hikes. Even in Waitomo Cave, there's one of a beautiful little Ruakuri Walk, which is basically right where you start the Waitomo Cave strip. So you could go for an hour or two. But so the Tongariro crossing is a bit of a more serious walk. It's 7-8 hours you have to calculate. And normally, what's the best way to do? You actually start it from the western side, from Manga de Popo Hat. Let's have a quick look at that. It's a beautiful area, but the key thing you need to keep in mind, especially in the Tongariro area, is the weather can change very, very rapidly. So this walk you can do as a day trip, as I mentioned, but you can also overnight in huts. The huts, if you do overnights in New Zealand huts, many of them you need to pre-book, especially the ones which called the Great Walks, which are the Rootburn Track, the Kepler Track, so the really famous one. But if you do the crossing through the Tongariro, you can do that on your own, or you can actually do it with a guided walk. I recommend to do a guided walk because you get so much more out of it. Plus, you get a transfer, so from Manga de Popo, that's a starting point, and then you walk through this beautiful area here with the Emerald Lakes. So this is, picture perfect area. So this is it's a very busy place, as you might be able to spot. There are lots of people around. So if you go with a guide, with a guided group, with a small group, you'll also be able to avoid those kinds of key locations and get the timing right. So what it does, you would actually finishing here up at near the Kitatai Falls car park. So that's the northern part of the Tongariro National Park. So from the middle of the North Island, there's a couple of places I really recommend because they're kind of a little bit off the beaten track, like the Mount Egmont Taranaki National Park. The cool part is also you can actually travel from the Tongariro area through this place, through this road. It's called the Forgotten Highway. It's a lovely kind of a remote driving experience, so to say. Yeah, just a couple of pictures. Here's a famous pub. It doesn't look that flash on this picture, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous rural kind of New Zealand area. So keep that in mind. Forgotten Highway, it's called. So on the western side of the North Island, we have the Egmont National Park. Yeah, often missed. Not many people do visit, not many internationals, I should say, but it's a lovely area. It's a volcanic area, Mount Egmont. So it's actually a resting volcano, but it is just an incredible little national park with lush green forests, great hikes. Look at that. With views, I mean, some people go right up to the top, but you really need to be well equipped. Hey, talking about equipment, you always want to have good boots, good hiking boots, rain jacket, of course, and always take some food supplies and additional water if you go for longer hikes. It's very important to keep that. And also you want to, if you go for more serious hikes, you want to let the Department of Conservation know of your itinerary. That's a very well established system. But yeah, so this Mount Egmont area is one of my favorite. Again, you can do day hikes, very great little walks, or you can go overnight. So we have these Department of Conservation visitor centers, and they're a great source of information. In the winter season, obviously a little bit different, talking about seasons in New Zealand. Between October and April are usually the best times to visit, especially if you want to go hiking. So that's the Mount Egmont National Park. And keep in mind also, you can drive all the way through to the southern part, to Wellington. There's another few forest parks like Tararua Forest Park, the Ruahine Forest Park. So lots to see there. But often what I suggest is actually take a domestic flight, and there are flights going like to the South Island. So let's have a little closer look to the South Island, because many people spend more time in the South Island. But normally good ratio is 1/3 of your time in the North Island and 2/3 in the South. So let's go into the Abel Tasman National Park, which is right on the top of the South Island. This is one of the most popular ones. It's actually also the smallest national park in New Zealand, but the stunning part is here. It's basically a coastal national park with a coastal track. Look at these pictures. It's just stunning golden beaches. So what many people do, they go in with a water taxi. And you can see one here. So, and do a day hike. You can go 3 hours, 4 hours. You can do longer. There are also Anchorage Bay is one of the key points for the water taxis. There are lovely hikes into the forest, into the inner kind of Abel Tasman, but most people would actually hang around on the coastline. Even if it's on the coast, don't underestimate. Sometimes it's up and down, so it can be quite tiring. Some other people, they also combine it with a kayaking tour. So you can do half-day kayaking and half-day walking, which is actually a really cool thing to do. If you want to do the overnight trip, hiking or tramping as we call it here in New Zealand, you would need to pre-book the huts. And those huts, like any other national park in New Zealand, you can see one here, they need to be really booked in advance, because in the summer season between October and March, April, they are really busy. So because we have so many options here in the South Island for hiking and walking, I keep it a little bit shorter now, because I want to do actually specific videos for each national park later on, because there's simply so much to talk about. So let's have a quick look at Nelson Lakes National Park. This is a beauty too, very underrated. You can do a day trip from Nelson if you want, or you can stay there. It's a very small village. Again, multi-day hikes available. Really beautiful little place. Many people stop here in the Paparoa National Park anyway, because you will be traveling from Nelson along this road, either directly here through Punakaiki, or you go through Reefton. But there's a couple of spots I really recommend you to stop. A local hike, walk here, Cape Foulwind. That's a beauty, because there's a seal colony, and you can actually walk more or less to Carter's Beach and back, or you can do, if you arrange with a car. So that's a great option. If you go further down, Paparoa National Park, there's some Fox River, there's hanging cliffs. I'll just show you pictures here. It's such a beautiful little place. Yeah, and those are the kind of places along the way. Everybody will know Punakaiki Rocks and will go there. But those are the kinds of smaller walks which are often, you don't see that many people around. So keep that in mind. Traveling down Punakaiki, that's here, the Pancake Rocks. Again, there's some beautiful little walks in the area. We go further south, and especially in this area here around about Greymouth, there are some stunning forest walks. Again, talk to the locals, because we have a couple of accommodation providers here. They know this place inside out, and depends a little bit on the weather. Especially the West Coast is famous for a lot of rain, but obviously with a lot of rain you get quite a stunning scenery. So Arthur's Pass National Park, this is in the mountains, so it's a totally different kind of feel than you would get in the Abel Tasman National Park. It's basically high mountains, it's Southern Alps. You can do it as a day trip. You can try the Punchbowl Falls here, done that many times. Very short, that's only about half an hour, 40 minutes return. So yeah, that's a totally different scenery, and that's the beauty with New Zealand hikes and walks. You have a wide variety of them. So let's better carry on because otherwise I'm talking for hours here. And just want to give you a quick overview now. You're traveling through the west coast of the South Island. A ton of walks here, really are. One of my favorite areas is here, Okarito Lagoon. You can do a walk, and you can do also kayaking into the lagoon. That's a lovely possibility. But you got in this area more the kind of day walks or 1 hour, 2 hour walks, not that much the longer ones. Here on the other side of the mountain, this is the Southern Alps. So you have on the western side, on the eastern side, there's no crossing in respect of the only crossing here is Athos Pass, and further down here is Haas Pass, but otherwise you can't just cross. Aoraki National Park, this is again, high mountains, the highest mountains in New Zealand, and there's a couple of beautiful little walks I highly recommend. This is now the Tasman Glacier Lake. That is a beautiful site to stop. Hooker Valley as well. Stunning scenery, isn't it? That's from the eastern side when you drive in. If you're on the west coast, you will not see that. Again, that is the Hooker Valley, going into the Hooker Valley, very famous, lots of people go there. This is the viewpoint for Tasman View Glacier. You see the glacier here on the right-hand side, and the lake, which was formed the last 20 years or so, basically. And they're doing tours on the lake, kind of like with boats to check out the little icebergs floating around. So that's another cool place to go. Again, you're crossing into, Mount Aspiring National Park, Westland National Park. Let's go further down south. Now, this is where some of the most famous hikes are located. And I want to talk a little bit more about those now, because we have here right in Tianau, we have the famous Kepler track. The Kepler track here, you can see the outline. It's a loop track, which one of the few loop tracks we have in New Zealand. It's a 4-day. You can do it in 3 days, but it's a wonderful hike. With the Kepler track, I want to talk a little bit how this all works in respect of the overnight hut experience and how to do it. So this is Tianau village. The Kepler track is, as I mentioned before, is a loop. It basically starts here more or less on these control gates, and then you walk up. It's around about, depending on the fitness level, but probably 4 hours or so to the first hut. Sorry, it's here, Luxmore Hut. That's just the limestone cliff. I'll go there in a minute. I just want to give you an overview first. And then the second day, which is the most important day, you actually hike along the tops with some stunning views. And then you go back into the Iris Burn. So that kind of track, like the Kepler track or the Milford track or Hollyfoot, they would need to be pre-booked for the huts because the huts have certain maximum limits, and it's so popular that it's absolutely necessary. So here's some pictures to show you Luxmore Hut. So it's a stunning location. These are the kind of bunks provided. With this track, you need to bring your own equipment. You need to bring your backpack, your sleeping bag, your cooking equipment, and your food. So all you get basically is a mattress. And with this mattress, that's your home for the night. There are kitchen facilities. That's a beautiful picture of the hut from outside. There are kitchen facilities here. There's a helicopter landing pad. Some people flying in do a day hike as well. That's possible. Stunning setting here in the morning. That's sunrise in the east. Yeah. So again, you need to provide all the equipment, and you need to. Here's the cooking facilities. It's gas, so you need to bring your own billy and food. And don't skip on the food because it's tiring, and that's what it looks like when the evening when people start to cook. It's a very communal atmosphere. The track is one of the best tracks we have in New Zealand. It's very well maintained, but in heavy rain conditions, it's always a chance that you kind of can walk in water as well. Local Kia, it's a mountain parrot. They shouldn't be fed. Some people do that, but it's not good for them because in the winter time when there's nobody around, they don't find any food. So please don't feed the Kia birds. So people getting prepared, that's quite a good picture too. In general, for hiking New Zealand, you need to have layers. I recommend the onion system. So you have different layers of clothing you can peel on and off. Hiking sticks are a good idea, especially when you go downhill on the other side of into the Irisburn Valley. Some of the walks, we call it boardwalks, which basically protect the environment instead of walking on the on the ground with the ferns and the trees. This is partly really to protect the environment, keep your socks dry as well. So yes, this was an overview over Kepler Track. There's another one I really recommend doing as a day trip, and that's going into Milford Sound. So many of my guests, or some of my guests, will do the Milford Track as a day walk. The Milford Track is normally done as a 4-day hike. It starts here in the northern end of Lake Tianau. So there's a boat ride from Tianau Downs, which is further down here, to Glad House. This one is a privately or a guided walk, so you need to pre-book that. Bedding, food, showers, and so is provided. The company calls Ultimate Hikes. I just have a look through the picture here. This is a different kind of experience in respect of it's fairly luxurious. If you think about that, you're in the middle of the bush. There are local guides. They have radio contact, and you have private rooms. The scenery is spectacular. They have very good food, so it's a kind of a little different experience to when you do your own cooking, carry your own equipment, etc. You still need to walk, but so this is the Milford Track, doing it as a guided walking option. So the other alternative actually to do the Milford Track as a day trip, what you do, you travel up with the guiding company. It's called Trips and Tramps. They do that. You travel up from Tianau to Milford Sound. It's about good 2 hours drive. And in Milford Sound, what they do, you get on a water taxi, and they take you right up into that part. So it's called Sandfly Point. Not sure if it's Sandfly Point. Hopefully they have some pictures here as well. So this is the last bit of the Milford Track. So people would actually come from here, from the west, staying at Quinton Hut, I think that it's called, next to Sutherland Falls. So they're walking out here, and but you actually would arrive in the morning, so you don't see them. You arrive around about 8 o'clock. You take the water taxi over here and then you do a guided walk with a local guide for about 3 hours. It goes into, let's have some pictures to give you the kind of an idea what we're talking about. So this is the signage for the last bit of the Milford Track. So the Milford Track is 33.5 miles long. Again, as I mentioned, it's about 4 days normally. The first day is only about half an hour or so, but let's say 3 days and a bit. Waterfall, it's green, lush scenery. Here we have the water taxi crossing in. So it gives you an idea. And you would actually do the walk for about 3 hours, and then you head back around about 12:30, and you go into Milford Sound, and you do the cruise in the afternoon. So it's a perfect day out. Here's some pictures on the track, on that part, on the last part, you would see it's just spectacular. I highly recommend do that as a day trip if you don't have the time to do the full track. By the way, you can do the track, the Milford track, also as a self-guided option. But I'll really need to do another video on that to go into more details. Here's a little South Island robin, a bird. You find those little cheeky fellas, and you find those tree ferns as well. So let's move on to another area, Stewart Island. So as you probably figured out by now, there's so much to see and to do. And Stewart Island is right down here in the southern end of New Zealand. It's one of these places very few people go to in the larger context. So you only want to head over there if you have a little bit more time, or if you have specific reasons really to go into the wilderness and to have something really much more remote. And also maybe you want to see kiwi birds. So I don't want to go in too much because, again, I will do a whole video on Stewart Island. It's one of my favorite places, but you can do the Rakura track, which is basically a loop as well here around from Auburn, which is Half Moon Bay. So, but you also can do the big loop, the Northern Circuit, and you can go over to Mason's Bay. So I want to talk about Mason's Bay and the day trip options in another video. I will link to that later on once that's done. So I'll give you some pictures of Rakura, Stewart Island, just to give you an idea. It's a very rugged place. Yeah, the weather can be challenging, wind, rain, but in the summertime, boy, it's just incredible. The landscape, the scenery, the bird life, very, very active bird life. You have the history as well. There's an anchor chain from the history in Maori mythology. So there's lots to see and to talk about. So it's one of my favorite places. I will do a specific video on Stewart Island. So I think that brings us to the end of this this little information video. My key recommendation is to plan ahead. If you want to do multi-day hikes, those will need to be planned ahead, and then you build your overall itinerary around that. The day hikes are really options you want to add at the end, because there are so many of them. It all depends a little bit also on the weather conditions, on how you feel, and so on. But there are heaps, there are literally hundreds of options. My key recommendation here is also talk to the locals, what you want to do, what kind of fitness level, what the weather is like. So this is the most important planning strategy, I believe, for hiking and walking in New Zealand. So as you can see, there's a lot of information about walks and hikes in New Zealand. So I'll leave some key links in the description box below. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and keep in touch with more videos to come, and catch you in the next video. Bye.